I do want to go back and just talk a little bit more about menopause, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Two questions. Can you tell us about the cognitive effects? Because you did say that you're feeling that your mind is affected. So I want to hear about that. And also, I'm really conscious that I've been reading things in the media about women leaving the workforce in their mid 40s, early 50s, before retirement time. And I'm just wondering, from an HR perspective, if you've got a take on how we could perhaps stem the exit of women around that perimenopause, menopausal time. So two questions there. Answer them as you wish.
Yeah, absolutely. So the cognitive impact. So one thing I would say is a lot of people will give this the term brain fog, and brain fog has become a sort of acceptable term for menopausal symptom, in a similar way to baby brain being kind of used as a way to describe how people feel when they've had a baby. I'm not a big fan of either of those terms.
Me neither.
And actually, the experience that I've had, I don't think if I had a blank sheet of paper, I would describe it as brain fog. So it's not always helpful. Sometimes people go, "Oh, you're having brain fog," and I have to say, well no, I'm not really. The impact that I have is finding words that I know are kind of up here and in my brain, and that could be the right word to describe something, or it could be a fact or a piece of information, or it could be somebody's name. Names quite often crop up for me where I just can't remember that person's name. So I'll be in the middle of a conversation and be talking about someone, and I'll be like, and there is literally just a blank. And the more that you struggle against that, the less likely it is that word is going to come into your head. The second element of the cognitive impact for me is the impact on my working memory and kind of short-term memory. So I found myself going to do something, and I guess the usual process is your brain decides, right, I'm going to go, and let's just take a really simple example. I'm going to go and make a cup of tea, and I'll maybe get halfway to the kitchen and I can't remember what I was doing, and I just have lost that kind of working memory of the intention to do the job that I was going to do. Now, in a busy professional, fairly senior role, there's a lot of things you have to hold in your mind all at once quite often. And I've found it a real challenge to, I guess, retain, but also to trust myself that I will retain things. So I've lost a bit of trust in my own kind of abilities in that respect. And the way that I am trying to overcome this is lots of list writing. Lots of reminders and alarms and notes and things like taking medication. My watch buzzes at me every day to take my vitamins, to take my medication, to meditate, to do whatever. So I've had to put systems and processes in place. And I guess if it's helpful for your listeners to understand a little bit about why your brain is impacted, in a really simple sense, your frontal lobe, so the executive functioning part of your brain, has estrogen receptors, and so therefore thrives with the provision of estrogen. You switch that estrogen off, that part of your brain deteriorates. The bit that doesn't deteriorate, though, is your amygdala and your fight, flight, freeze response. And therefore, your amygdala and your fight, flight, freeze takes over almost as the default way to go about. And that means that your executive functioning, your ability to be rational, and some of those problems that I've talked about can be impacted. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, because there are things you can do about it. So I can't take HRT because of the risk of cancer recurrence. Again, that's not the case for everybody, but for me, I can't. But what I've been learning is things that stimulate and basically exercise the brain can be really helpful. So one of those things, I've seen kind of pictures of brain scans of people who have done mindfulness and meditation, and the impact that that has had on those areas of the brain in a really positive way. Puzzle books, logic puzzles is my thing, or kind of word puzzles, doing your Wordle every day, and all of those kind of things. Sounds a bit like a cliche, the sort of brain training, but actually, when faced with this impairment, those are the choices that I have to be able to try and mitigate against that impairment.